Record your message after the tone.
Hey, Greg. Good luck on the next money bomb, and keep rocking, buddy. Take care.
In the 1930s, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt addressed the nation through a series of radio broadcasts known as the Fireside Chats. His aim was to reassure the common man that our society would recover from its troubled times. But we're far from 1930, and I deal with a different kind of fire. For a new era of worldly frustration, we offer a fresh conversation. I'm Greg Carlwood, and these are the Higher Side Chats.
How's it going, Higher Side Chatters? Drinking a little drink, smoking a little smoke, just trying to get through the days in Cope here in sunny San Diego. I'm Greg Carlwood, and although today is a bit of a short show, it is no less exciting. We have the world's premier researcher into the Bilderberg Group here just 1 week after their annual meeting, and he's in such high demand right now, I was really psyched that he'd take any time at all out for THC. So I'm going to play our little spot for the money bomb for those who might want to donate and participate and make some dreams come true. And I will be talking with the one, the only, Daniel Estulin on the other side. Hey people, I gotta take a second to tell you about something we do around here called the THC Money Bomb. What I do is every 5 episodes, I total up the donations I've gotten in that period of time, and half keeps me and the show going. I take the other half and I gift that back to a random listener. So far we're hitting about 500 each round, and I couldn't be happier about it. So consider throwing in $5 or $10. It's cheaper than a hand at the blackjack table with better odds than a scratch-off ticket. Plus, you know half supports a show you like, and at the very least, half will go to a like-minded person who could probably use a nice surprise in these troubled times. When you make a donation, I can see your email address, and that's how I pick the winner. But to keep things kosher, you can also get in the pool by sending your info on a postcard to me, Greg Carlwood, P.O. Box 635223, San Diego, California 92163. And that's what we call the THC Money Bomb. Boom. All right, people, as we grow wiser, we realize that nothing in this world is left up to chance, but instead powerful members of the ruling elite routinely get together, analyze, strategize, and assess just how close they are to manifesting the script handed to them by the real power that never leaves the shadows. But these meetings can still give serious insight to those who have the eyes to see, and few people have the 20/20 conspiratorial eagle-eye vision like today's guest. Daniel Estulin is considered one of the world's top experts when it comes to the globalist get-together we call the Bilderberg Meetings, as well as several other related topics. He's the author of The Octopus Deception, Trans Evolution, and the main reason we're talking with him today, the true story of the Bilderberg Group. Daniel, my man, welcome to THC.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure. I'm well aware of your show, and I'm very, very pleased to be on it.
Thanks, man. That's awesome. And it is a real honor for me as well. You are the guy when it comes to the Bilderbergs. Your book is wildly successful. You're talking about it on every network known to man. And I know you don't have a lot of time, so I do want to kind of jump right into it. And I know this audience is going to have at least a layman's understanding of the Bilderberg Group and their meetings, but take us to that next level. I'm sure there's a lot of misconceptions out there about them. So just to start us off, even though I'm sure you've got the script down pat by now, how do you like to sum it up for the uninitiated?
You know, since 1954, the Bilderberg Group has represented the elite and wealth of Western nations. Bilderberg is your former NATO alliance, Western Europe, United States, and Canada. The reason it's called Bilderberg is that the first meeting took place at the Bilderberg Hotel in Oosterbeek, Netherlands. A hotel at the time was owned by the Dutch royal family. Thus, henceforth, the name Bilderberg Group. The people who attend these meetings, again, Western European nations, Canada and the United States, the attendees themselves are financiers, industrialists, bankers, politicians, business leaders of multinational corporations, presidents, prime ministers of European nations. Sitting president of the United States never attends, but is well represented by finance ministers, state secretaries. You have also representatives of the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, presidents of world media conglomerates such as New York Times, Washington Post, Financial Times, Wall Street Journal, The Economist. They're always there. You know, Time Magazine, Newsweek when it was something, before it became, something you wrap your fish in. And so every year, in May or early June, this secretive, it's not secret, it's not, these people are not the secret society, okay? It is a secretive meeting that takes place somewhere in Europe or the United States and Canada. You have 120, 130 of world's power brokers meet in secret away from the prying eyes of the press who wants to report.
Right.
Not the press who attends, who never report, okay? And so again, the idea, the objectives haven't changed since the first meeting back in 1954, which is basically the destruction of nation-state republics at the expense of corporate control. In other words, the creation of what they call one world company limited, basically corporations with more power than any government on the planet. And that's, in a nutshell, if you want to really kind of analyze it and dissect it as what Bilderberg is. That said, just a couple more sentences, if I may.
Yeah.
Bilderberg, today everybody talks about it because they read it in my book, and suddenly it's kosher to talk about Bilderberg. But today Bilderberg is a lot less important than it was 60 years ago when the group was founded in '54. Back then, it was a very important element of the oligarchical structures of the Cold War period, and that in and of itself is a pretty significant factor, because what it meant was that Bilderberg was a vehicle through which private financier oligarchical interests were able to impose their policies on what is nominally sovereign governments. And I guess, with any one of these private organizations, there's always a secretive or scandalous part. And the biggest scandal part of it was that it was heavily populated by people who came out of the old World War II Nazi apparatus, people such as Prince Bernhard, for example,
right.
the founder, who was a SS card-carrying member and husband to Queen Julianne of the Netherlands. And another character was a guy by the name of Walter Hallstein, who was the first president of the European Commission, a lawyer for Hitler, who basically justified through his legal writings the creation of the concentration camps. So these characters, they were basically cleaned up and dusted off and employed to become a hardcore Cold War anti-Soviet structures in the West. And that's what Bilderberg is in a nutshell, aside from, all this crazy, wacky, kooky conspiracy crap that you hear out there from people who really have no idea what they're talking about.
Gotcha. Well, man, I mean, we know that it just ended in May, which makes this the 60th anniversary, and I'm kind of anxious to get. I know the overarching theme is usually the same, but is there anything specific to the 2014 meeting that you've been able to extract from what they're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I've extracted all their notes, because we have people who are members of the group, and they attend annually, and they have privy to all the conversation discussions. And what's interesting about what these people talk about, this particular year, aside from the fact, your typical Russia, Ukraine, Iran, China, cyber wars and all that kind of stuff, is the fact, that you have a real rise of nationalism in Europe. And this rise of nationalism will very much affect the very near future of humanity, because what we're looking at realistically, if you kind of look at, at what's at stake, you have basically two systems at war. One is the monetary system, and the other one is the national credit system. And these systems are basically, the decision. I speak English. Yeah, I do a little bit once in a while. Forgive for the, I opened my mouth and nothing came out for a few long seconds. I was kind of wondering what the hell was going on. But the point is that. So all this stuff about nationalism and nationalistic tendencies, and you keep winning in England, and Marine Le Pen winning in France, European elections, and they call them this, the extremist Nazi parties. They're not extremists. They're not Nazis at all. People who are basically in parties who are basically for nation states against having the supranational unelected government in Europe telling national governments what to do, how to spend their money, what to spend their money on, et cetera, et cetera. And this is something that, makes perfect sense to anybody who's sane enough to understand how the world works.
Yeah, definitely, man. And one thing on the U.S. side that I found interesting was that I've heard you talking about how it seemed like Obama was going to be in hot water this year because it seems like he has failed to push through some of the policies that they may have wanted from him. And then just yesterday, I hear that because of this big POW, Guantanamo prisoner exchange scandal, all the major networks keep saying, oh, it seems like Obama broke the law. This could be an impeachable offense. And it makes me wonder if this might just be how they're dealing with him or how they're punishing him, because, I mean, we're only a week out from the meetings. So I thought it was an interesting connection because the media powerhouses are there, and if given the instruction, they can come up with a fake story and make the magic happen, and nobody's the wiser. You know what I'm saying?
That's a very good point, because, again, if you kind of look historically, these supranational organizations, they certainly have the power, to get anybody in hot water, and Obama is just another stooge. Anybody who thinks, this guy, black, white, orange, yellow, green, whatever color he is and whatever his name or creed is, who sits in the White House, has the world's most powerful job, has no idea how the world runs, because these individuals be the the Obamas of the world, the Bushes, whoever sits in the White House, whoever sits in Ottawa, whoever sits in France, in the Elysee Palace, or in Italy, it doesn't matter. All of these individuals, for them to get elected, somebody has to spend gazillions of dollars getting the populace convinced that this is just the guy who make your world go peachy and make your family finally get out of this financial hole you're in. And so you convince enough of these people and they vote for you, and then this guy gets elected. And he's put into the White House, or in Ottawa, or in France, or anywhere else in the world. But again, these people have no real power at all, because again, once they're in power, once they're in the White House, they are not free to decide on the policy decisions. That policy decision process is made from behind the scenes by the people who put there. And if the Obamas of this world decide to suddenly deviate from that, they're just going to get another Obama to take their place. And it's been done throughout history. And today, you don't even need to kill a president. You have to kill Kennedy to get him out of the way. But today, you don't need to kill anybody. With the social media, with whispering campaign, anybody's reputation can be destroyed instantaneously. And that's something that all these individuals are very aware of. So the fact that, as you just mentioned very accurately, that there's talk about impeaching Obama, it might very well be a message from the higher-ups that, get back in line, start doing what you were supposed to do, don't be stupid. And where is the stupidity part of it? Well, the stupidity part of it is that Obama convinced European leaders to impose sanctions on Russia. Well, while they were doing that, he forgot to lock the back door. And so the Russians and Chinese made this enormous gas deal worth about $400 billion. And the Bilderbergers, European Bilderbergs, were all over Obama on this. They're saying, hey, moron. So you said to us, impose sanctions. We did, but you didn't lock the back door. Now the Russians and the Chinese have this deal in place, and just in the nick of time, the Russians have shown the world, that they do have, friends in high places, and they can blunt Western sanctions over Ukraine, and they can assert themselves, as regional powers. And needless to say, both of them, have the same common enemy, which is America. And so, that's definitely was something that these people were very irate about. And I haven't seen, from the things that I'm reading in, Bilderberg reports that I have access to, is that, you have, for the first time since 2002, when Bilderbergs met in Chantilly to discuss the prospects of Iraq war in 2003, which we also duly reported on. The fact is that these people, for the first time are saying to the Americans, you guys are morons. And the Americans are saying, stuff it up your nose. And they're saying, we're not going to stuff it up our nose, but we're certainly not going to impose more sanctions. And the Americans are saying, we need to impose more sanctions. And the Germans are saying, if we impose more sanctions, the Russians are going to cut the gas off, which is going to hurt our economy. Is that what you want? Yes, that is what you want, isn't it, Obama? So they're going at each other's. But still, there is a silver lining, quote unquote, for the Bilderbergers in all of this, because as they mentioned it themselves, as American Bilderberger said, 40 years ago, Nixon and Kissinger, they persuaded China to turn against the Soviet Union and ally themselves itself with America, So there is the chance that, you're going to see some of that right now. You're going to see Western media, Western powers, appeasing China at the expense of Russia. And they're going to do everything in their power to break this up because, they understand that aside from the fact that these, two big nations, superpowers, reach this deal, there are problems. And these, problems, they're fundamental differences they're going to have to overcome. And some of these fundamental differences is the fact that, the deal itself took 10 years to reach. And it was signed at the last minute. And that suggests to the Bilderbergers, from what they're saying, that the Chinese drove a hard bargain and they got a great deal from Putin, because Putin needed a deal in place,
Yeah.
He needed that deal in place. And so this tussle is something that these, two countries are obviously going to take advantage of one another. And also, the Bilderbergers are saying that China's global power is growing, Russia is in decline. Okay, and the Chinese government wants Kremlin to acknowledge that, and the Russians are not, exactly up to par to do that. Also, the two countries share this enormous border, and on the one side of the border you have lots of people, the Chinese, and no natural resources, and on the other side you have lots of resources and no people. So, the side of Russia is being populated. I'm making words up as I go. Right. And to think that I've written 12 books, 5 of them international bestsellers. I'm sorry, people. Populated doesn't exist. Okay, it's, because I speak 3 languages fluently. So
no worries, man. It's pre-recorded. I'll fix it.
don't fix anything.
Okay.
Don't fix it because it's the fun part. I want people to hear this. But the point is that just before I did this interview, I was doing an interview in Italy, with Italians, and before that with Spain, and before that, did like 3 or 4 in a row with Russia. So I opened my mouth in the middle of an interview live. Russian words come out, and I see by this anchor, in front of me on the screen, they saying "oops," and I'm saying "oops." But anyway, the point is that as another American Bilderberger said, he said that we shouldn't forget that Russia's tactical nuclear weapons are still pointing at China. And that's a very, very, very good point. So again, it's a great deal for the Chinese and the Russians. It helps them along both the Russians and the Chinese. But also on the other hand, there's lots of sticky points to overcome, and these are the things that Americans and the rest of the elite are going to try to take advantage of. Needless to say, both Russia and China, they're the cultures that go back so way back in time that they will understand from a diplomacy point of view that for a temporary gain joining America, they shouldn't break this alliance between them, and they should stay together because they do have a common enemy, and that common enemy is very, very strong.
Yeah, man, it seems like all this is really coming to a head. It's pretty interesting. But another thing I wanted to ask you about, and I'm sure this happens all the time, but I learned from you that in 2007, after the Bilderberg meeting, a portion of them, the real high-enders, were invited to a second, more exclusive meeting at a castle where they worked on more detailed things. Any evidence of a second-tier meeting this year?
No, I don't think so. Not yet. I mean, this kind of stuff usually comes to me, but
way later.
Yeah, way later, because most of these meetings, I have good sources, but they're not that, members of the group, okay? And they're invited a lot, not every year, but a lot. And even those who are not invited get the report. But the point is that, to be in that echelon, you got to be one of these globalists who love to hate the rest of the world. So right. Unfortunately, and I do mean unfortunately, I don't have access to it. But that information, for example, what was discussed in 2000, and it wasn't 2007, it was 2005 meeting.
Oh,
okay? Yeah, the meeting took place in Rotterdam in Germany. Then they retired to this castle in Bavaria. Okay, and what they discussed there literally, turned into what's now known as Strategic Trends Report 2007-2036, which deals with the very future of humanity. And one of the things about that report, and that report was the basis, the backbone of my new book just recently released in the United States called Trans-Evolution, The Coming Age of Human Deconstruction. And in that book, basically what I'm explaining is, the information which came out of that report. And basically the point is that we're standing at the cusp of the greatest evolutionary change in the history of mankind. And what's coming now will forever change the very face of humanity. And that's something that, again, came out of the initial Bilderberg report. But the meeting themselves, there's just so much out there. There's just so much information that, by the time you sift kind of through all that stuff and figure it all out, you realize, boy, these people have long-term plans.
Right. And that's what I was going to ask you about, kind of with the transhumanist agenda. I mean, guys like Kissinger and David Rockefeller, these guys are both well over 90. I think Rockefeller's 100, but
Rockefeller just turned 100. I think a few, and Kissinger turned 93.
Yeah, man. I mean, these guys are old. Do we see any evidence of things like cybernetic consciousness transfer and technological immortality? Are they ready for these guys?
No, not for these guys. Thank God. I don't think they're gonna get there in time. Rockefeller has been studying for his finals for a long time, and he hasn't been going to these Bilderberg meetings because he's simply too old, too decrepit. Now he may live another 100 years, and maybe we'll be saying when we're 90, saying, "Oh, man, he's gonna be dead soon," and he's still like an energizer bunny, still going strong. I don't think so, but I think he's hopefully he's gonna be dead soon. And but it's still interesting to kind of see how these people put all that stuff together and how they work it. And that's something that, I think a lot of people don't quite understand. And I think it's important, to explain to people how all this stuff is done. Because, if I'm, listening to this for the first time, and, as an intelligent human being, my first question would be, okay, so you have these powerful people who meet once a year. Okay, I'll grant you that. But how is it that this meeting that only lasts about 3 days or so, turns itself into something where literally the destinies of 7 billion people, are played with for the next 12 months? And, and people have to understand that, first of all, no matter where you look, governments, big business, any institutions out there, The key to control is secrecy. Okay, whether you're talking about, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, G7 meetings, World Trade Organization, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, World Economic Forum in Davos, central bank meetings, what else? European Union Council of Ministers meetings, European Union Commissioners meetings, European Union Summit meetings, government cabinet meetings, think tank meetings, foundations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All this stuff, is done behind closed doors. And the reason it's done behind closed doors is they obviously don't want us to be privy to their conversations. And beyond this common reluctance, I guess, I just made up another word, great, reluctance to reveal the proceedings of the meetings, the secrecy principle extends to the forums and the meetings themselves. But, by and large, we don't even know these meetings take place. And before I wrote my book on the Bilderberg Group, and before it was published in 2005, 99% of the people had no idea that these people even existed. Okay, so for example, if you kind of look at this year or years worth of meetings, you have World Economic Forum in Davos in January. Okay, end of January, beginning of February. Then you have the G7 meeting in April. Bilderbergers meet in May. You have Trilateral Commission meetings and Council on Foreign Relations meetings. Somewhere in between. You have the a quarterly Council on Foreign Relations meetings. You have a trilateral meetings. Americas, they meet, I think, in February. Then you have in late April, early May, you have the Americas, and then like October, November, you have Trilateral Commission Japan or Asia. They have their meetings. So basically what you have, and then you have International Monetary Fund, the World Bank annual conference in September. So it's a kind of invisible international consensus emerges. Okay, and this consensus is carried from one meeting to the next. But there's no one leader who is not this eminence gris, this one big fat, slobbery guy, with his green face and lots of, wrinkles, okay, who is leading it. But the consensus reached at these meetings becomes the background to the G7 economic, policy decision-making. It becomes what International Monetary Fund imposes as an adjustment program in Argentina, Nigeria, anywhere in the world. It becomes what Obama or anybody else out there proposes to Congress. It becomes what European commissioners propose to the Commission. And suddenly, all these things have a trickle-down effect and become policies of national governments. So then from the moment Bilderberg Conference closes, this consensus reached in different areas of discussion at the annual meeting are wholeheartedly promoted by these all-powerful political and commercial interests, throughout the mainstream press. That's why you have the mainstream press there. They get the idea, they know what they have to say, and, they promote it. You get different perspectives, left-right divide, but it's still the same people controlling it. Hegelian dialectic, okay? So these policies suddenly, become common policy to governing international forces of seemingly different persuasions, which is, again, one of the reasons, if you kind of look at the United States, the only real difference between the Democratic Party and the Republicans is abortion. Everything else is exactly the same. If anything, the Democrats are killing more people, out there than the Republicans are. But so basically the debates at all of these meetings, be it International Monetary Fund, Bilderberg Meeting, Trilateral Commission, anything, they're intended to build unity by resolving differences. And that's how all of this stuff works. And that's why this stuff is real. It exists. It's part of our world. And people have to understand that this isn't some wacky conspiracy theory. And again, if they're wondering who the hell I am, aside from the fact of, some silly, immigrant who can't speak English properly, I've given 2 speeches at the European Parliament, which is an equivalent United States Congress. Okay, to a full house of European parliamentarians on Bilderberg, on the financial crisis. Wall Street, Italy, on the front page article, it's like 3.5 years ago, said that I was one of the few people who really understood the crisis from within. I met with Fidel Castro, read my book and loved it. I gave 2 speeches to the Joint Chiefs of Staff in Venezuela, to the Privy Council in Czech Republic, to the Czech president, and all the justices of the Supreme Court of Czech Republic. So I'm not some crazy conspiracy kook out there who talks about Bilderberg at the same time talking about UFOs, about some hollow Earth theory, and all this other nonsense. Not at all. All this stuff has basis, historical basis. And that's something that people have to understand, that what we're seeing today, and the reason that they're trying to destroy countries and create these pan-economic blocks, is because if you kind of go back to the Middle Ages, to Louis XI in France, 1460s and beyond, As a result of the creation of the first nation state in Europe, France in one generation, from 1460s to 1480s, doubled its population. And until 1815, so that's between 1460 and 1815, okay, that's 300 and almost 400 years. France was the #1 country in the world in everything. In economy, in sciences and technology, in war, in population and growth, in everything. Because progress and development is directly proportional to population density. So if you're going to have progress, if you have technological development, you're going to have more people on the planet Earth. And this is exactly the reason why we're looking at this at the centerpiece of why they're deindustrializing the world, destroying the world economy. You have, terms like zero growth, deindustrialization. People are saying, what's that? Look at Detroit, folks.
Right.
What do you think that is? Is it supposed to look like that? Like a bombed out shell, post-apocalyptic from some, Will Smith movie, I Am Legend, you have like zombies coming out of these buildings. I don't think Detroit is supposed to look like that. But if you're the elitists, if you're the Rockefellers of this world, you want the world to look like Detroit. You want Detroits everywhere. You want New York to look like Detroit, Seattle, Washington, Texas. I know Texas is not a city, but it's just, whole Texas.
Right.
Paris, Madrid, Moscow, London. You don't want the entire world to look like that. Deindustrialization, zero growth, demand destruction, because that's how you reduce the world's population to a more manageable number. And why do they want to reduce the population? Because for them to eat, we have to die.
Man, it's a crazy thing. I've been into this Bilderberg thing for a few years now, and I've always assumed kind of like a corporate conference. I've worked for companies where you go to conference, they give you the agenda, you do your updates on how the company's doing, and I figure it's just like a big conference like that for these people. But a lot of people consider, David Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger to be pretty close to the top of the pyramid, but I don't think you agree with that. And I'm wondering, who's really writing this script for these Bilderberg meetings?
People like Kissinger and Rockefellers cannot be top of anything because, just simple fact that, Rockefeller has lots of money. Yes, he does. He has billions of dollars. That's true. Okay. You Google his name, you get like 100 million pages. That's true. But does that make him powerful? No, it doesn't. It makes him popular. But popularity contest and power are two different things. Okay. You could talk about a girlfriend to one of these, high moguls. She's popular, but doesn't mean, Justin Bieber. He's popular, but doesn't mean he's powerful. No, he's not. Okay, so the real power, the true movers and shakers of the world are invisible. You don't know their names. Okay, that's how powerful they are. You Google their names, you get 0 results. That means power. Okay, but the fact is that, if you kind of look at what these people talk about, their deliberations have important repercussions on the world economy and the world's politics and geostrategy. But again, the real policy-making decisions are made at levels far above anything that Bilderberg can muster up.
Yeah, man. And I also wanted to ask you real quick, do you think in terms of the transhumanist agenda and the elite's plans for life extension or immortality, do you think those plans extend more into areas like colonizing space or secret space programs to give the elite a sustainable place to live if things go haywire here?
But they don't have to go haywire. It's a natural, logical, extension, progression of mankind. Our future is in space. That's called immortality. Okay, because immortality, as far as I'm concerned, means, to assure the survival of our species. If we can't extrapolate life on Earth, let's say 100, 200, 1,000 years, we're not going to have enough space. Well, we may have enough space. We're not going to have enough natural resources, food, water. So we're going to have to immigrate. And that's the whole point of space immigration. We have to go to Mars. We have to go to the moon. We have to build forward colonies. Or we have to start building bases because the natural resources of the universe are there. We're going to need them for the planet Earth. We're also going to need them to start building civilizations out there because we're going to get to the point where we're simply not going to be able to manage living on the planet Earth, it's an imperative. And another reason we have to do this is because we're people. We have this divine spark of reason, which allows us to discover universal principles of nature. And these universal principles of nature improve the lives of everybody on the planet per square kilometer of space against nature. That's progress. That's technology. That's development. And that's what we have to seek out, at any cost. And needless to say, obviously the elite are going to have more money, more, willingness to do this. But it's not only for them, it's for everybody, because in the end, the trickle-down effect, it's still going to work. And today's society is amazing because the technology we have at our fingertips is just incredible. It's beyond anything we could possibly imagine. And we need this technology to survive because, again, we're getting to the point, that there's just so many people on the planet Earth that without technological advancement, there's no way in hell we'll be able to survive. And that's why, again, the elitists are destroying the world's economy on purpose, and they're not hurting themselves. I'm speaking in Spanish now. Aside from the fact of what people think, destroying the world economy doesn't hurt the rich. They're already wealthy. They already control 90% of the world's planet. Just like if you go back to the Great Depression, which really wasn't a Great Depression. It was simply a transfer of wealth. We lost, they got. Everything we lost, for cents of the dollar. So that's what all this stuff is all about. So the point of it all is that, again, the wealthy are destroying the economy because, without technology, without progress, we're all going to go to hell in a handbasket. But on the other hand, they're using their trillions, gazillions of dollars of wealth, to develop these incredible futuristic technologies, which make this divide between us and them greater than ever.
Well said, man. I mean, yeah, the drive to advance technology is just as natural as the drive to procreate and breed, And sometimes when I see movies like Elysium or Transcendence, I get the idea that Hollywood might be getting us ready for that future ahead,
Well, Hollywood is getting us ready for this. And again, if you kind of think to some of the other films or even TV series, Almost Human, that was a great series. It's unfortunate that they canceled after one season, but that was a great series. I mean, that was amazing. If you talk about neuroscience, and everything that they can do. And they weren't far off. And they're talking year 2048. No way. I mean, this stuff we're seeing that Almost Human. If people haven't seen it, they had it on Fox this past year. And it's that stuff is just a few short years away. That's how close we are to this incredible technological advancements.
Wow, man. Super interesting. Very cool, Daniel. I know you got to get out of here. I have had a blast talking with you.
Thank you so much. Anytime you want me back on, just give a holler and I'll be back on your show.
Yeah, man, we're going to have to talk about that new book of yours, but it's always good to hear from a guy who's out there keeping tabs on the latest agenda. Even though there's not a lot I can do about it, I still like to recognize the plan of attack. So thanks a lot, man. You want to give the people a little bit about your website before you go?
Sure. People can, the two books that people should definitely read and buy. The True Story of the Bilderberg Group, and the new one, Trans Evolution: The Coming Age of Human Deconstruction. And that's that's a game breaker. This book is awesome. And the best way to follow me is my Twitter account, Estulin Daniel.
Right on. Cool, man. Well, we'll be talking again soon. Take care of yourself out there.
Likewise. Good night. Bye-bye.
Holy hell, people, a powerhouse of information. Daniel Estulin, hope you enjoyed that one. Spread the word, tell your friends, and canvass the cities, people, because THC needs a little love. I did the math, and we have 2% of our listeners putting in for the money bomb. Of course, nobody is obligated, but if only 5% of people signed up for the $5 monthly money bomb, I could get a lot of stress out of my life and also give back to the listeners. So far, we paid for one fan's expensive college test, helped another one buy a much-needed car seat for his kid, and in the last show, we helped pay for summer art classes for a listener's little girl who had taken an interest in comic books. This is real stuff, people, and a lot of folks think I'm dumb for putting out a show for free and trying to give away half the donations that come in, but we're going to do it against the conventional ways. Until I can't do it anymore, which might be a couple months here without some new blood in the game. My goddamn sigils don't seem to be working their magic, but I still have a roof over my head and life is great. I know everyone works hard and I hope we make it a little easier or at least a bit more interesting. I love you people. Be careful out there. There's powerful people working hard to keep you pressed, stressed, and thoroughly depressed, but hey, the new season of MasterChef looks like it's going to be a great one. Don't hesitate to leave me a voicemail on our speaker box app at thehighersidechats.com on the right-hand side, just like you heard that voicemail at the beginning of the show. Also, share us where you can, blah, blah, blah. You know the drill. I love you guys, and I'll see you next week. Your move, Bilderbergs.
Through the best of times, through the worst of times, through Nixon and through Bush, 236, we went our separate ways. You fought for Stalin, I fought for freedom. You believe in authority, I believe in myself. I'm a Molotov cocktail, Dom Perignon, baby, what's that? Confused look in your eyes, what I'm trying to say 'Cause baby, I'm an anarchist, you're a spineless liberal. We march together for the 8-hour day. Held hands in the streets of Seattle. When it came time to go breaks through that Starbucks window, you left me all alone, all alone. You watching on